Nothing went wrong, I promise. All right, so hi, welcome to the SaaS Products, what I've learned 4 years later. I've worked on a few things, but there's only two like really notable ones, I guess. And just so you know who I am Jeremy Rasmussen. There's my Twitter thing that I don't use, and my Instagram that I only post really pictures of my cat and dog on, and sometimes when I travel. And my website. So if you want to get in touch with me, you can use those methods or come up and get a card later if you want to chat more about this stuff beyond this event, because it's very interesting to me, which is why I proposed this session. So first, just so we're all on the same page, what is a SaaS product? Everybody's familiar with that term, right? Basically what Wikipedia says, it's software as a service is basically you build something and deliver it to somebody else for a licensing fee, essentially. Examples of that are Slack, Salesforce, Dropbox, pretty much everything we use day to day. How do you get involved? Usually somebody's got like this big idea. I got this great idea and want you to participate in it because I know you know computers. If we build it, they will come, hopefully. So as I mentioned a second ago, I have two that I guess these are the two notable ones that I'm involved in that have actually like made progress and have clients and are making money, theoretically are making money. The first is Ski Club Pro. It's an athlete management system. I guess I have a description here. It's for ski teams in North America. I gotta read this. For ski teams in North America who want to simplify program and race registration, athlete tracking, and better communication between coaches and families. I basically just rehashed whatever was on his website. But it's kind of a cool little system. The owner of this particular product, he was previously a ski coach, and he started a business, and I worked for his company for software and web development stuff, and so he wanted to build this thing. So if you build it, they will come, and that's what happened. So we started building it. I want to talk about that first, and then after that, I'm going to talk about client management systems. Super creative name, right? Like, whew. But that's a pretty cool thing. Talk about it more later, but it's basically a glorified time card tracking client management thing for healthcare professionals in New Zealand. That one's actually more fun, but we'll get there. So why Drupal? If I'm honest, no, but seriously, partially, yeah, if I'm honest, like it's because it's what I know. But Drupal itself does a lot of great things. Like it's easy for site builders to rapidly get something set up with contributed modules, because a lot of the stuff's already there. Speaking, Drupal 7 right now, not so much 8, even though 8 is quickly catching up. Let's see, you can get I'm going to just read through these really quick. Proof of concept can get built fast. Custom code can be written to fill in the gaps from the contrib space. And large pool of developers that should probably be like quotey fingers instead, who should be able to augment the team or even take over. I say should because sometimes it's really hard to find Drupal talent that kind of fits what you're trying to do. But in theory, you can find other people who can fill in the gaps and take over in some cases, and hopefully they don't want to just rebuild it their way from the ground up. So any questions so far? By the way, I didn't say this at the beginning. Feel free to interject comments and questions and whatever you want to say, because there is a lot of information, but I kind of am happy to kind of gear the conversation or the discussion kind of toward whatever people are interested in. So I'm going to go fast, and then we can pause for questions and whatnot. Okay, so have you ever heard of the Lean Startup? Did anybody go to the MVP session before? The last one? Okay, you did. So did they mention this? Okay. All right, so who's heard of the Lean Startup? A couple of you guys. All right. So the Lean Startup is this book that I'm not trying to plug it or sell it or anything, because honestly I only made it to like the 4th chapter. Because like it just kept repeating itself. But basically the gist is build an MVP. And there was a session that talked about it, so I was hoping maybe some more people went to that. Build only what you need to get started, get feedback from users, add features based on feedback, and then rinse repeat. So the idea is to just fundamentally get what you need to get started to make some money and launch, or actually in the other order, launch and then make some money. And they call that the MVP, the minimal viable product, or something along those lines. So, like, there's my MVP of the car I'm going to build or something. Drupal makes it really easy to build MVPs just because of the previously mentioned, you can kind of like put things together pretty quickly. Ski Club Pro, we started out trying to be MVP, thinking we were being MVP, and this is basically what it needed to be. Parents, athletes, coaches, and staff can log in and do things. Essentially, people should only be able to, or those people who log in should only see the things that they belong to. They just needed to be able to sell events and registrations for things, for programs and whatnot, training, whatever, and communicate with parents and athletes. That maybe wasn't necessarily MVP qualifier, but the owner thought it was. Lots of reporting, attendance, race data, views of a bunch of stuff that got collected in the system. And we wanted to try and keep it as close to the contributed module realm as possible, because we thought that was a good idea. Sounds like an easy MVP, right? Anybody disagree? Well, you should. Also, like, who else heard the following? Organic groups, Drupal commerce, and a whole lot of views. Like, most of you heard that, right? Yeah. It started out very simple, at least we thought. And then quickly we over-engineered the blank out of it. I guess I'm going on YouTube, I shouldn't swear, right? We built for probably every possible scenario we could think of, which is, again, complete opposite of MVP. After launch, we ended up just removing a whole bunch of stuff, things we thought that the people would use, never actually really did, or just it was cluttering things up or confusing people because maybe it was like 2 views that were similar that kind of were named the same. So finally getting to the point. First thing I've learned, don't overbuild, it's a waste of time. I think we can all agree on that. So next, like I mentioned earlier, we tried to stick to the contributed space, trying to only use modules that already existed somewhere, with this idea that it would be easier to maintain. Like somebody else is doing the work. Just plug it in and go. It would be easy, right? You're wrong. So this is largely the problem we ran into. Even contributed modules require some kind of configuration. When you install it, you have to make a change to Drupal to make it kind of work. You can't just enable it and expect it to work in most cases. So still speaking Drupal 7, backing up a few steps, since both Ski Club Pro and client management systems were both started about 3-4 years ago, Drupal 8 really wasn't a viable option at the time, especially wanting to stick to contrib. Didn't make sense to oh yeah, Drupal 8. I don't think it was even like in any sort of pre-release to be able to test. So So most of this is about Drupal 7, but a lot of it can be applied to Drupal 8 here, and most of it in the next coming years. Drupal 8 would totally be a viable option. Actually, right now it's a viable option, to be honest, but it's a little more work, not in this particular context of what we were trying to do. So how do you maintain and update config? Most of you already know features, and some of you probably went, but it actually worked really well, at least the idea of it when we started. So those of you who don't know features, basically a module that lets you make modules of modules, kind of like Inception Kitty here. I like it. So, second thing I learned, put things in code. And features made it easy to do that. But we made one really big mistake, a big featured module. So we tried to pile everything into the same feature module and then deploy that and hope everything went well. It doesn't work so well. I like how I can feel the yeah, you guys know. It went poorly. It kind of went like this. Yeah, not useful. The good news is we didn't really have a lot of clients yet, so it was easy to go back and fix, but it was scary for a minute. So use features wisely. So that's what I've learned 2.1. The wise part is, what I've found is when you use features, make them smaller and related, sort of how contributed, or actually any module in Drupal should be. So you have a module that kind of houses all the things that do related things. So do that with features. It'll work better, trust me. As I said before, I actually like features a lot. Seriously. It's good, it works, if you do it right. All right, so in Ski Club Pro, there are a few custom modules as well. We tried to avoid it, but like there's always just stuff that fills in there's stuff that needs to fill in the gaps. Like, so you write custom modules that maybe two modules don't actually talk to each other or don't play nicely with each other, and so you just write something to kind of bridge it or whatever. So that's yet another thing that I learned. There will always be custom code, so expect it. And if you don't have somebody on your team that can help you with that, then you're going to have to find somebody. Because you can almost never have... I guess that's kind of a stretch to say. It's very hard to do something like what we were doing without having a custom module or two or three or a bunch. So in general, Ski Club Pro was supposed to solve a few problems for like the industry. The owner was a former ski coach. He's like, yeah, I know this stuff. I got this. This is all we got to do. But there's always a but. Each ski club was trying to solve the same problem differently. So each one had their own kind of like method for doing whatever it was, race registration, or even collecting payments for events and stuff. Like some of them do the thing that credit card companies don't like you doing, like charging an extra 3% or whatever for using a credit card versus paying with a check, or like they all had some silly thing that was a little bit different. So it made onboarding new people, new clubs difficult, and we ended up just, okay, yeah, we can make that change. So we slowly started making these little micro changes for everybody, and we ended up calling it snowflaking, just because every system was a snowflake. It was unique. It was different from the last, and it is an extremely difficult thing to do, to maintain a number of systems that are supposed to be like assembly line if they're all different. So that's the next thing that I learned. It's not sustainable to maintain snowflakes. We ended up having to basically go in one system at a time. When I say system, I mean Drupal install, just in the particular way this our this product was set up, every client got their own Drupal site. So we called them systems. It's not sustainable to maintain snowflakes, because you have to go into each one and make sure all the things are turned on and make sure everything's working correctly, and sure, you could write some tests against it, but then we weren't writing tests at the time. But you would have to write a test for each one, and at that point you're just making custom websites for everybody that are kind of the same, and that doesn't work. Out of this, we defined 3 product types, because I worked for this company who built this for themselves, but also we built other things, marketing sites, web applications, and whatnot for various types of clients like higher ed and things like that. So we sat down and talked about it a little bit and came up with these 3 things that maybe somebody else has come up with before, but anyway, this is how I recall it. So you have your 3 types of projects. You have rigid. The product is exactly the same. Sorry if that's small and you can't read it. I apologize. But rigid, the product is exactly the same for each client. The only thing that changes is like user-provided content. So creating nodes, uploading images, whatever, because that is pretty easy to just leave alone. But the whole product itself, if it never changes from the next client to the next client to the next client, then it's rigid, and that's awesome. That's perfect for the SaaS thing. Personalizable can still work in a SaaS model. So it's much like rigid, except for there might be some things that you change per system. Like maybe the theme's a little different, and there'd be ways to be able to like roll that into your methodology of deployment and whatnot. But basically, we defined it as like everything is the same under the hood, but like the styles are different, or there might be a module that you turn on, but it's self-contained, and so it wouldn't really be that hard to like upgrade because it's just in its own little thing. And then there's custom, basically what we were doing with Ski Club Pro for a while. Just everything was different, and that's not really the best idea for a SaaS product. That's not even SaaS, like, to be honest, that's not it. So anyway, it was like an aha moment for us. So, any questions about Ski Club Pro up till there? Like anybody? No? All right.
So,
yes?
So you mentioned you're using organic groups. Was that sort of for each race, and then so each club had its own site, and then the groups what were the groups used for?
No. In that particular case, well, that was one of the things we rolled out of. Okay. So in the early stages, we thought Mom, Dad, Grandma, Uncle Joe all would want to log in and see the athletes and their family, and maybe like Uncle Joe would want to pay for Susie's year training program or something. And so we used organic groups so that they can all be a part of an athlete's profile, essentially, and nobody does that. Yeah. We're like, this would be a great idea. So we used organic groups to kind of facilitate that, because it was probably it at the time looked like the easiest way to kind of accomplish that without having to write anything custom. And it just, in reality, nobody ever did that. Basically, Mom would sign up an account and then give Dad the password. Okay, I got them all signed up. I need you to put in your credit card, is basically what happened. Like that happens at everybody's house, right? So that's what we used organic groups there, and then we took it out. It left the system pretty quickly.
Sorry, one other question. Was the sort of deployment of the sites like automated, or were you manually provisioning each site based on a club's interest? Or?
Sort of. I talk more about this later, but basically, in both cases, both Ski Club Pro and the client management systems, we were using Aegir. Anybody know what Aegir is? Yeah, most of you. Who doesn't know? Who do you care? Okay, so Aegir. Well, I'm gonna mention it, so we'll come back to it. But basically, it's a way to manage a bunch of Drupal sites. Yeah.
I'll just comment that I end up not using features as much, except to install features on a copy, export, grab the code, and then stick it in migrate modules. You can actually define things from features your migrate modules.
Because it writes all the code for you, and you just
Right.
copy and paste, and then you're not using the icky features. Yeah,
You
yeah.
don't have the overhead of features at that point. Plus, you can do the importing and,
Sure.
it's fun.
That's a good idea, actually. So, client management systems. It is, again, a system for healthcare professionals in New Zealand who need to track time and clients and stuff like that. It's probably on the verge of actually being an electronic medical record thing. But really, it's largely so the healthcare providers can get paid, because in New Zealand, yeah, I'm getting ahead of myself. If you get hurt or sick in New Zealand, you're covered because it's socialized medicine. I guess I think is the technical term. I don't know. People in Canada, if there's any Canadians here, you could probably tell me if I'm speaking right, because that's probably about the same. So it's just an easy way to do the paperwork to get reimbursed for the services provided to people who have a medical claim. So here are the requirements of client management systems. Need providers and staff to log in. When I say providers, everybody knows what I mean by that, right? Yeah, okay. Track services provided to clients. So if they go out and visit, or in this particular case, it was originally built for like psychologists and social workers, but it has expanded to other areas since then. So yeah. Track services provided to clients, get that data out and submit it to the ACC, which is that government agency that facilitates the claims and paying people and all that. And lots of reporting just for business purposes. Yeah.
Do they have the equivalent of HIPAA there? Because medical records scare the heck out of me.
Yeah, it is kind of scary, huh? I had yes, but it was very hard for me to track down what that actually was. So, the client wasn't super helpful on that either, because he's like, I don't know. Well, give me what this. What is like even some keyword in the statute or whatever. So yeah, it's there. Yeah. It started out much like Ski Club Pro. So we wanted to try and be contrib, just because it was also started about the same time. So a lot of the same mistakes were made. This was built through. This wasn't built with the same company. So I worked at a company who built Ski Club Pro, and then this was kind of on the side with a person that I've done a lot of work with over the years. So he had confidence and just wanted to hey, I got this idea. So that's how I got involved in this particular one. So it was kind of outside of the realms of having a big company behind me to help. But I just did it. So how hard could it be? But a new mistake creeped up along the lines of what you were, asking about. Well, what about HIPAA and all that stuff? And I didn't really understand the industry, and I didn't really understand what he was trying to do. I was just, slapping some code together because, yeah, how hard can it be, right? I didn't know what he was doing. I didn't really care. He's like, yeah, I just need this thing. And so I started to kind of put things together and here you go. But like I said, sure, anyone can slap some code together. But that was fundamentally the problem of how this project evolved. It took a lot of work, and it ended up looking a lot like this. It still kind of looks like this to this day. Basically, there's a lot of garbage in there because you would just build one little thing and then move on to the next thing, and you didn't really have any understanding of why those two things needed to talk to each other or how they needed to interact later. It was more along the lines of, can you just build this thing that gives me a CSV in the end? Oh yeah, sure. And then, no, we need it to do this. No, we need it to do that. And so I was just kind of piecing stuff together. But that taught me another key point here. Make sure everybody involved has a basic understanding of the industry and what you're trying to accomplish, really. Because I feel like if everybody's on board and understands what's going on, they can say, wait, why don't you try it this way? Or maybe, oh yeah, we did this thing over here and it kind of works and we can make it come together. So it's not just, so you don't have, let me go back. It's not just so you have a bunch of, or to prevent a bunch of garbage, but it's also for like fostering ideas and getting more brains on the same thing, even if they don't really have any like skin in the game, so to speak, since, you know, Super Bowl and all, right? Superb owl. Anybody? Superb owl?
Yep.
Oh yeah, got it, yes. Yeah, so, but it's still just to get some more people to think about like how they can solve problems and to prevent the garbage. Yeah, so like I said, there's still some garbage that needs to get cleaned up, but it's probably not going to happen because like it's working and the client doesn't care and he doesn't really know what the code looks like or even would understand it if he saw it. So, all right. So, next thing, ever turn on all the faucets in your house? Like all the water pressure drops. Maybe 2 people are showering at once if you have 2 showers. And it's like starts running really slow. That's sort of what happened here on this project. The focus just like scattered, like everything. There was no focus, rather. The focus existed. Because we were trying to do all these little things and kind of put them together and not really having a cohesive understanding of anything, like development started going really, really slow because from one week to the next, it was like whatever we were working on changed because I don't know why, actually. It just, you just needed focus. So because of that, it was really hard for him to understand what was actually, or I guess not because of that, but I think a lot of the focus was missing because he didn't understand MVP or what should be in the MVP, because, you know, every client wants everything to be in there at launch, but not everything needs to be in there at launch because they only need the fundamental pieces that you can actually sell and get people to come on board, and you can roll in features as you go. So like getting people to understand that is really hard, it turns out, unless they've done it before. So that's the next thing I learned. Get organized, make it simple, the organization, and stay focused. We still use Trello. It's really easy. It's not that hard to train somebody. It might take them a while to stop like emailing you directly, because that was another problem, you know, either on a call or emails would go into your inbox and things would get lost. But in Trello, once the client figures it out, they can just start putting things in, and, you know, it becomes a matter of like, you know, sorting through duplicate tasks, and yeah, there's some work involved, but it's better than losing them. So we still use Trello just because it's easy. Yes, you have to train them once, yeah, you got it. So Trello or whatever your tool is great. So now, did you have a question, or were you? No, you were just scratching. Okay. In hindsight, this next one seems really obvious, but, you know, we all got to learn, right? Use version control. Yeah, it took a while to get on board with it, you know, and honestly, I was very late to the game, and it was more toward on the closer to the release of Drupal 8 was when I really started to understand how to use Git well, at least for me. Everybody has kind of their own little methods and tweaks, but basically, I think everybody just needs to get over it and learn it. Don't be afraid. Pick one and just use it. And if you do it wrong, it's okay. Just use it, because you will eventually figure it out. All right, so you remember the 3 types of projects from before? CMS just so happens to be rigid, and it was kind of a struggle to get it there. like I mentioned earlier, just it was hard for the client to really understand MVP or MVP style concepts. But once we got there and kind of solidified what the product really was, and we had some focus, and we weren't like just, yeah, now the buttons need to be blue or something silly that would distract or change things. We finally got there, and then we were able to start rinse repeat, because the system was rigid. Like, it was identical across the board, and it was a combination of several things, including features. So in this one, we ended up using a large number of features, a lot more than I was comfortable with at the time, but also a bunch of custom modules, because there's a lot of stuff under the hood that needed to happen that really wasn't going to exist in the contrib space, but we were able to leverage a lot of the contrib and then kind of bring in all the specific stuff in their own suite of modules. And honestly, it's not very well organized, but hopefully when we rebuild in Drupal 8, can clean that up, get rid of that garbage. What I really like about features is you can use custom modules to kind of like clean up some of the stuff that it doesn't do or can't do. So that's another thing I learned, and I think it's important to kind of understand how features works, and then also know how you can use a custom module to kind of like make it super sized awesome or whatever. So that's the 2.2, so going back to the features. Use a custom module to do the things that features can't. For example, if you decide to remove like a field from a content type in a feature and deploy it to the target site, it's not going to be able to remove that field. And that's by design, because there's likely going to be data there, so you got to be extra sure you want it to go away. So we started using custom modules, or a custom module as a deployment module. Anybody familiar with this concept? Tyler's familiar with everything.
We're for hosting companies, see a lot of stuff.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
So we use this deployment module concept, where there is one module that uses like the hook update to just run functions to do things that features can't do. For example, dump an entire field, and that was the pivotal point for us in like automating deployments in the CMS. Yes.
Quick question there. Why would you have used that as a separate custom module and not necessarily putting those hook updates in the feature?
Well, I'll tell you here right now, actually. So that's along the same vein. So if you're using a bunch of custom modules, why are you using features at all? Because it, hold on, let's find this slide to get to your question here. Features makes it really easy to make changes and kind of rapidly change things. Who's ever tried to update a view that was provided by a custom module that's later been overridden for whatever reason, by mistake or on purpose? It's kind of hard, right? Like, because you have to write a bunch of crap in like the hook update to like delete the view and then reinstall it, and hopefully everything goes well and doesn't break. It's just easier to use features. So back to your question about the migrate or not question, but comment about migrate. It's a good idea. I like it, but the way we were deploying our system, I don't think it would fit quite so well, because we're constantly making changes, and we use features to just like spit out right to code, and then we just commit that and push, and that's usually all we have to do. Whereas that would involve a couple extra steps. So you copy and paste the stuff, which is also the reason why we don't write the hook updates in the feature module, because we're always overwriting it. So we just add it to another module. So,
Makes sense.
any other questions? Those are good, actually. Good, valid questions.
And actually, isn't it regenerating all the files every time?
Yes. Yeah, so that's why you wouldn't want to do it.
Custom, you put it in there, it's just gone.
it just gets blown out, and then you have to remember what it is and go add it, and so it's just
That's true.
cleaner to not mess with the feature. Only like make your change, re-export it, and then commit it. Oh yeah, see, I forgot the slide was in there. Yeah, I'd rather go to the dentist than have to keep like trying to re-update or re-up a view in a. Anyway, you know what I'm saying. All right, so features just speeds up the work. So judge me if you want. So yeah, and then the next thing is like automate all the things. It's you've heard it before. Everybody says it a lot, but no, seriously, do it. Let the robots take care of it. I love watching this. Because the robots, they're just going to keep going, right? Okay. Our deployments are mostly automated. There's some stuff involved that we're intentionally not automating. Let's see. I'll talk about that in a sec, but this is what we're using largely. We're using GitHub, a system called Buddy, and Ager. Anybody heard of Buddy? Yeah, well, Pete. One person. So Buddy is just another one of those automation things. So I guess you can compare it to Circle CI, even though it's kind of different, but not. Travis Jenkins, whatever. Like it does things. I like it because it was really easy to figure out, and the price was right at the time. So that's Buddy. And then Ager is a hosting system. So some people don't know what that is. Ager, in a nutshell, is a Drupal site that's on a server that runs other Drupal sites and kind of facilitates the management of those websites. It's really neat. I like it. I'm a fanboy. And I guess I get. I don't want to compare it to Pantheon because Pantheon's kind of like a totally different thing, but it's kind of like that. It allows you to like make copies of sites and get things up and running quick. Do you have any comments on that? Maybe like any? No. All right. He's like
It's very, very different from
He's like, no, I don't want to use it. All right. So I like it, but use the right tool for your needs. Like, don't use it just because I said so. So in the way we have it set up, Buddy just effectively, for lack of a better term, listens to the specific branches in Git repos, and it runs actions against changes in that branch. So it sees the change and deploys it to Ager. There's some stuff that you got to do to hook it up to set up a platform. In Ager, a platform is just basically a copy of the code base, so like the Drupal install, but without the database, because then it moves in the concept of multi-sites, in Drupal multi-sites, it moves a bunch of sites onto the same platform. So you have one Drupal code base, and you pile a bunch of websites into that same code base. And that's what makes this particular, well, actually both of them, Ski Club Pro, we finally did actually go back and make that a little bit less snowflakey. So both of them are kind of like, Ski Club Pro is rigid-ish, and the CMS is very rigid. And because of that, we can do the Ager concept where there's a single platform and a bunch of sites inside of that particular platform. Am I just like stumbling over my words? I think I'm communicating what I'm trying to say, but I can't tell. Probably because I need water. I'm going to do that.
Did you use big files for the platform?
Experimented with makefiles, because you can with Ager build a platform with a makefile. But instead, so Ski Club Pro isn't in Git or anything like that. That's done. I'm not working on that anymore. But CMS is still working, and so we have the entire Drupal site and the contrib modules committed to the repo. eventually I might convert it to Symphony, or not Symphony, rather Composer, and not commit contrib modules and stuff like that, just kind of best practice. But right now we just have everything in there, so it just deploys the entire Git project, and then we migrate all the Drupal sites into, or Aegir facilitates the migration of the Drupal sites into the platform on a change. So if we create a new feature or whatever, we deploy the code to the server, set up a new platform in Aegir, and then move all the sites from one platform to the new platform, and that effectively upgrades it. So that's our process, essentially, and I think that's what I said on these slides here. Boop, boop. Yeah.
Just to mention that one of the benefits of that workflow is that you've got a rollback should you discover anything wrong. You've got the existing platform still that you could.
Yeah, I
go
guess.
back to if you needed to.
I guess I should mention that. Like Aegir facilitates backups between migrations. So if you make some changes and add a new platform, and then you move the site from that platform to the next platform, it makes a copy of the public and private files and the database and some other junk in there, but not the code base, but just the stuff specific to that site. It makes a backup of it and dumps it in a backup folder somewhere before it does anything to your site. Yeah.
Two things. One, with the make files, if you ever do use them, it's really handy because you can daisy chain them. So if you do have a base make file that's going to apply to everything, then you can actually then just apply the custom ones for that particular variant. So it's kind of fast. Right?
I was not aware of that.
Very nice.
It's very handy.
And then, let's see, what's the second piece that I was going to say? I've just forgotten, so I'm going to.
All right. Tell me later. Thank you. That's actually handy.
Say though that I think the idea of keeping all the code in a single code base, although it may not be recommended best practice, it's a lot quicker than having to rebuild a platform with an install profile and document file every time. That sometimes takes that.
True.
Because it's going and fetching all the modules
Yes,
again,
that's
rebuilding
valid.
the whole thing, and it's like, oh wait, no.
And if like for whatever reason a dependency isn't there, then
Yeah.
you can't build and you have to wait and
Exactly.
I remember the other thing. Just again with using Aegir, it's also really handy. You can take those backup files, and there are some tools that you can actually take those and then use them on your local machine and plug them into Filobox or DocSol and use those to actually have a complete environment locally that you can save to Git and then push those changes. So you end up developing locally, and then it synchronizes with either your production or test environments. So that's fun too.
Yeah. That's very similar to what we already do. So yes, I love that. It makes it easy to just like re-up your local environment, basically. It could work on other platforms too. So it's not like Aegir is the only way to go, but like there's definitely many ways to skin the cat, as they say, or whatever they say exactly. I don't know. I don't recommend skinning the cat, to be honest. Let's say skin the potato, I guess. There's a lot of ways you can skin a potato. Okay, so Aegir facilitates like upgrading stuff, and actually, to be honest, we use Drush to revert features, but that's not really a big deal.
But Aegir now has that nice sync feature that you can kind of sync between existing, like a dev sites, let's say, and a production site, that you can sync it and it'll revert your features and clear caches and do all of that like once.
I've seen the revert features thing, but I didn't.
It's you know what, I think it's under. It's just it actually needs to be enabled. It's in the later versions of it, but it's
Okay.
It's just disabled.
I probably need to upgrade. I don't have those. Yeah.
This-
I wanna keep my hands on the upgrade of Aegir itself.
Remote import is another really good one that's also hidden in there that you can enable. That.
What is?
Remote import.
Oh yeah,
this
yes.
is a great one.
Remote import's awesome for. See, now we're talking about Aegir, not SaaS Products.
Sorry.
But I love the remote import because that saves so much time for moving sites from one server to a new server, because we changed data centers for that HIPAA-like thing, and it took like an hour to move. At the time, it was like 40 sites, and most of the time it was just like getting it set up, but it took no time at all. It was awesome. Okay. So, the last thing I learned is it's worth investing in the right tools. So it was worth investing time and money into learning Aegir, paying for things like Buddy, paying for GitHub, You don't need to pay for Git. You can use GitLab if that's what you're into or whatever. Like you can just find what works for you, and then if it costs something, just pay it. It will be worth the savings later on, as well as investing time into learning how things work and learning new things like chaining make files or something. Like learn how to do that stuff because it'll pay off in the future somehow. All right. Because of the way we're set up, and let me go back to that. Because of the way we have this set up, it makes it really, really easy to have regular deployments. And on the schedule, we have technically release windows that we can roll out updates on a weekly basis. We could do it daily if we needed to, and because of the system in place. And since it's really just largely me in this particular project, we don't have a lot of fancy stuff that should be there, like test coverage or testing, other than point and click. But like all the tools are in place now, so once that gets time and energy put toward it, it can be rolled in pretty easily because of the system that we have. So that's pretty awesome. So looking to the future with Drupal 8, I'm going to just repeat a lot of this with Drupal 8, but hopefully do it better the second time around, third or fourth or whatever time I'm on. And I think a lot of this stuff could be, I mean, like with Drupal 8, like we have config management now, so there's definitely a different approach. We have Composer now and other very valuable tools that could help make this be much better than it is, and maybe Ager won't be involved, but maybe it will. But I'm excited for Drupal 8, and I really see a lot of potential with 8 and SaaS products. Is anybody already using 8 for some kind of SaaS startup thing, or just curious? It's kind of.
It's in an early stage, but yeah.
So you don't want to discuss it because somebody might steal your idea, right?
Oh, okay.
I'm just kidding.
It's open source and everything, so it's not a big deal. But it's in its infancy. It was kind of our first venture into using Ager in a Drupal 8 site because it was not previously possible on our Ager installation. I work at a university where multiple groups are using the Ager installation, and
You said
so-
Ager.
Yeah.
Everybody says it differently.
It's
Yeah.
true.
And everybody says it differently each time they say it.
It's true.
All right. Yeah. So that's cool. Like I see that 8 is going to have a lot of potential for doing some really cool stuff.
Yeah.
And as do a lot of other
nicer
people.
to work with 8,
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Because we used features in 7 as well, and it's a whole different beast. It's much nicer to work with.
All right,
There's
cool.
a lot of quick things that you can run inside of the Ager that will just work with 8 much better, I think, than with our setup of features and stuff.
Let's talk more after. I got the signal from the back that time's almost up, so I'm gonna just finish up. So to recap, don't overbuild. It's a waste. Put things in code, and if you use features, use it wisely. And if you can, write a custom module to kind of like bring it all together with features. If that's what you're going to use. There will always be custom code, so expect it, and get people on your team who can help with that if you don't have it. It's not sustainable to maintain snowflakes because we want an assembly line. That's the repeatable thing. That's how you make money. Make sure everybody understands what they're doing and understands the industry just enough to be able to contribute to like the discussions about building the particular product. They don't have to be like, I'm all in on this potato skin peeling thing. You know what I mean? Like they just have to understand it enough to be like, I can see where you're going here. Get organized, make it simple, and stay focused. Use version control, duh. Automate all the things that you can. I didn't mention, I mentioned it sort of, I didn't actually talk about it. We do the migration in Ager manually. Like you can do them in batch. You can move all the sites in batch, but we don't have it trigger automatically on purpose because we don't want to accidentally start rolling out sites. Like we want somebody to go and go, okay, we're ready to deploy all the changes. Okay. And it's worth investing in the right tools. So yeah, that's it. Fiend. Okay, questions, or do you guys want to escape and go to the thing, or do you want to keep talking a little bit more, meet afterwards, whatever? Anybody more questions? No? All right. I'm just making this up as I go, so don't mind me.
Two things that I think are useful to mention is that Ager does also support like webhooks from GitHub or Bitbucket or whatever, which is useful for development sites that you do want to say automatically do a git pull every time it pushes down to a dev branch.
Yeah, so you wouldn't need necessarily Buddy. Buddy's actually facilitating some other things that are really helpful for me. So,
for sure. And
yeah.
for the full builds, I imagine it's really useful in that sense too, though. But for just the quick git pulls kind of thing, there is that kind of built in. And the other thing to mention is features override module is a great way to maintain snowflakes if you have to have snowflakes.
I recall seeing that, but I haven't used it.
So the way it works is basically like if you have to make a change, you add it to its own feature override module. It leaves the default feature in its default state then, so it doesn't show as overridden. And then you can just turn on and off that change, and you've still got the change in code, and it just sort of sits as a neat layer on top of your existing features and leaves them all like as they should be.
Well, that would have been useful 3 years ago. Dang. Anybody else? No? All right. I'm here till tomorrow morning, so if anybody wants to hang out, let's talk SaaS stuff. All right. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Don't forget, go upstairs to the